Hi. Hi. I'm so happy to see you all tonight. Thank you for coming out. I'm Eileen Riley, President of the League of Women Voters of Putnam County. Ours is a relatively new league that began in Putnam County in 2008. We're a nonpartisan, grassroots political organization open to men and women. The league encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education. Tonight, our scheduled general member meeting is open to the public. Current information about the activities of the Putnam County League is available on our table outside this room. Also available is League of Women Voters of New York State literature and our 2019 legislative agenda. Please help yourselves to the provided literature. Coffee and snacks are provided in the back of the room. We ask that you please consider donating to our League of Women Voters Fund for the Students Inside Albany program. The donation jar is located on the table in the back of the room with the coffee and snacks. First, I would like to introduce Ms. Phyllis Honig, Vice President of our League, who will speak briefly about the Student Inside Albany program and introduce our 2019 students selected to attend this year's upcoming program. Phyllis? Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Nobody's saying anything. Can you hear me? Yes. All right. So we have a special guest with us tonight, Nina Platterati. Did I say that right? Okay. A junior from Mahopac High School. Through a selective process, our league chose her from among several participants from other schools in our county to attend Students in Albany. This is a 3-day training experience sponsored and fully paid for by the New York State League of Women Voters. It is intended to immerse students in the inner workings of our state legislature, to learn how public policy is proposed and enacted, and how the students can influence and affect the process themselves. Nina will get to meet her senator and assembly person and shadow them as they go about their legislative business. Nina, this is a unique opportunity for you, and you were chosen for your outstanding leadership and academic work and as a volunteer in your community. I'm sure all of us tonight here remember the Parkland, Florida school shootings. Nina, with the help of her fellow students, organized an event in her school for 500 students and faculty to honor the victims of that horrible tragedy. I think that deserves a round of applause. So come up here, Nina. Where did I go? Okay. We have a little present for you. But I can see you're a tall gal.
Microphone.
Phyllis.
You're a
Okay, I won't say that. I don't know. Okay. So here, we have, thank you, and we hope that you will wear it a lot so that you'll advertise the League of Women Voters. But I have another on order that I think is going to be for all the girls. Yes. So, and also, this is very important. This makes you an official member. Okay? You also are the youngest member of our league, and we're so happy to have younger members of the league. And thanks to her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Patteroni, for your generous contribution in honor of your daughter. So we're looking forward and hearing all about your Albany experience. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And here you go. And I'll give you, Mrs. Sophiana, I'll give you the bag.
Thank you. Thank you. pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the second thing that I neglected to say is please silence your cell phones. The League of Women Voters supports the new election laws implemented by the New York State legislators to improve voting accessibility to the New York State voters. We have invited the Putnam County Board of Elections Commissioners, Mr. Anthony Scanapiega and Kathy Croft, to tonight's meeting to discuss the recent New York State election law changes and how the changes will impact all of us. The audience is welcome to ask questions of our speakers at the conclusion of their discussion. Please step up to the microphone, which there will be a mic dangling off there, and to speak. So please, let's welcome our guest speakers with a round of applause.
Thank you. This one's for me.
That's for you.
Thank you.
Would you like to begin?
Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, my name is Kathy Croft. Is this on? Yes. Okay. I am one of the election commissioners at the Putnam County Board of Elections. I don't know how many of you in the audience know how boards of elections are run in New York State, but it's a bipartisan board. And so for every job that is held by a Democrat, there's another person on the other side, a Republican, that holds that same job. And it's not, election law stipulates, it doesn't stipulate that it's Republicans and Democrats, it just stipulates that it's whatever two parties gather the most votes on the gubernatorial line in a gubernatorial year. Those two parties are the ones that are working at the Board of Elections. So at the Putnam County Board of Elections, not only do we have the two commissioners, we have two deputy commissioners. One of them is in the audience tonight, Kelly Primavera. And then we have 8 election specialists, and then we have 2 technicians that do the programming of our ballots for the elections, as well as hash checks and everything else with our our optical scan machines. Our Bible is the State Board of Elections. It's election law, and we get new election law is released every year. This is 2008. Usually, what would you say, 2019 will be coming, I don't know, maybe June? I don't know. So as a result of elections that were held last November, there was some changes up in Albany with our state Senate, and a lot of laws have been passed quite quickly. There's a lot of election reform laws, and I think one of the biggest ones is early voting. And this year, early voting will begin. We won't have it before the primary for 2 reasons. One, they weren't going to start before the primary this year. They're starting at the general election. But the other reason is, in Putnam County, we are not having a primary in June, which is a big deal, because I think the last time... 1977 was the last time there wasn't a primary. So with early voting... we're going to have only one polling site in the county. It's going to be located at the Board of Elections. We're mandated, if we had over 100,000 voters in the county, then we'd have to have 2 sites. But for this year, we really, because everything has to be kept in a secure location, I think we felt more comfortable just having the one site.
We lucked out.
Yeah. So, and it starts, early voting will start on Saturday. It's going to be a period of 9 days. It begins on Saturday, October 26th, and it runs through Sunday, November 3rd.
This is out on the table.
Yeah. And it's also on our website. If you've never been to PutnamBOE.com, we have anything you need to know about voting in Putnam County. You can even look up your voter registration. You can find out where your polling site is. It's all there on our website. But along with all these election changes, we have to have other things passed as well, including e-poll books. because if you're going to be coming in and voting 9 days prior to the election, for Election Day, we want to make sure that all the poll books in our 22 polling sites are all up to date, and you can't, we know you've already voted by early voting. So not only e-poll books, but we're also looking forward to using print-on-demand ballots, which will save a lot of money, because right now our ballots cost, 17-inch ballot cost 48 cents. Last year we had a 22-inch ballot. I don't know how many of you remember, but it was a rather long ballot, and which was more than 48 cents. And we're usually mandated to order at least 100%. So if there's 62,000 active voters in the county, then we need to get 62,000 ballots. Some years, if it's an off year, we can get less, but nevertheless, it's a lot of money to spend on something that, we want to make sure that we have, so in case you need to use it. But if we don't use it, we store it for a couple of years and then it gets destroyed. So the polling sites are, this is kind of, so do you want to say anything about the early voting, or should I go on to something else?
Go ahead.
Okay. So, because I'm just kind of using this guideline that was sent out from NYS a couple of weeks ago. So there's also one of the other new laws that was passed this year was a primary election consolidation. So up until this year, there's always been a federal primary, which is held the end of June, and then there's a September primary, which is held usually the beginning of September, and that's the state and local primary. But finally, this year, they passed legislation to have them combined. And it wouldn't really take effect this year because there's no federal election this year, but next year it will take effect. And it will always be held the fourth Tuesday of June. There are little complications because we found out we had found a new polling site for Carmel, and we found out that there are Regents exams on that day, and they used the gym, which is where we were going to have our new polling site, so we had to work around that. There's always going to be something that we have to work around. That's just the nature of voting in Putnam County, because we don't have that many polling sites available to us. In Carmel, pretty much all the polling sites, for the most part, are schools.
And we are more fortunate than as you get further and further upstate, because they have less and less buildings to use. Like we use libraries. Sometimes the library would be as big as this room in some of them small villages and towns. So it gets worse as you move up and up the line to the more rural part of the state, from where they can use for buildings. And of course, the schools think they own the buildings. They don't know you own the buildings. They think they own the buildings. So we have to go around and round with the schools sometimes.
So, and another change that happened this year, because the primary date was changed, was petitioning period. So any of you that are candidates out there, or if you're town chairs, you know how important it is to know when you need to petition. And normally petitions would be passed the end of May, beginning of June, and you'd be passing independent petitions in July to August. Right now, everything's been moved up, which is kind of nice because we all realize that we're going to have the summer off. So because of the nature of our business, usually the employees weren't allowed to take summer vacations. So another.
Excuse me, may I say something?
Sure.
But that means that we were going out in freezing cold weather, snow, to get petitions signed. And again, I said to my committee at the time, when they started complaining, I says, think of what they're doing in Buffalo. So it had its advantages, maybe, but it has a lot of disadvantages moving it up also.
And I heard of somebody that complained because his ink froze in his pen. So another new law is the pre-registration of minors, 16 and 17-year-olds. So right now we can go, in fact, we do voter outreach at the schools. We go to every school except we don't go to Putnam Valley. We did go last year, but we've been to Carmel, Brewster, and Mahopac this year. And we can, if a student is turning 18 by the end of the year, he can register at any point during the year. But this new law says, starting next year, it starts in 2020, that when we go out and register the students, or they can fill in a registration form on their own, they can be 16-year-olds. And one of the advantages of this is right now there's like a 25-day cutoff date for registering before the general election. So if somebody's birthday fell in that 25, a student fell within that 25 days, if they hadn't pre-registered, they wouldn't be eligible to vote at the election if their birthday was held, took place during that 25-day period. But that's going to begin next year. Then there's voter registration transfers. And this one's a little bit more technical and probably might not be of that much interest to the audience. But formerly, prior to March 25th, if you moved from Dutchess to Putnam County, you would have to fill out a new registration form. You start from scratch. It would be totally new registration. You could be a Republican in Dutchess County. When you move to Putnam, you might go, okay, I want to register in the Conservative Party. You could do that, and it would take effect right away. That is no longer the case. Now your voter registration follows you wherever you're moving from. If you move from Buffalo to Putnam, whatever you're registered as in Buffalo, let's say you're a Republican in Buffalo, you come here and you want to be a Conservative Party member, that won't take effect. That party registration change, the party change won't take effect until after the general election. You will still be a Republican when you move here and give us your change of address. We now have to look up everything in NYS Voter. That's a statewide database. And there's more work involved in doing this because they have to make copies of all the registrations, and you've got to contact the old county. And as I said, I don't think it's that much interest to you, but it's making it harder for us. That's fine. It is making it easier for the voter. Anything? No? Okay. Then there's the LLC loophole. And this one took effect, I think it was the end of January. Anything that was made as an LLC expenditure, usually because it's a corporation, there's a certain amount of anonymity that went along with these contributions. And from now on, any expenditure that is made, the identity of all direct and indirect owners of the membership interests of the LLC, their name has to be made public. So the anonymity has been taken away. And by the way, with campaign finance, any of you out there, you can see what candidates, who gives to their campaigns, and you can see what they spend their money on. It's all public information, and it's all on the state board's website. Let's see, ballot by mail, no excuse absentee voting. Okay, this will not take place until it's statewide. It's going to have to be a statewide referendum. So, do you want to talk about? 4 years. Yeah, I think 2021.
It has to do this year. Then next year's legislation is the same legislature as this year, so it's got to be the following year after that. And then once you get the two different legislatures to pass it, then it becomes a referendum, and we all vote on it.
Yeah, because it has to be a constitutional amendment. So 2 different legislative bodies have to vote on it, and then it'll be a statewide referendum. Let's see, what else? Election Day is a holiday. This has not passed yet, but it's been put forward in front of the legislature for I don't know how many years. But partly because schools would be closed and then they wouldn't complain that we were there on Election Day. And the other reason is to encourage a bigger turnout of voters. And by the way, going back to early voting, because we were one of only 13 states that didn't have early voting, it doesn't necessarily increase the turnout for voters, but it spreads out the voting, and I think it takes the intensity of Election Day off that one day. And for next year, which is a presidential year, that will be, I mean, that's a big difference, because any of you out there that have worked as a poll worker and you've worked in a presidential year, you know how intense it can be. Let's see, what else? Okay, upstate primary voting hours. So I don't know, when did Putnam go to all day?
Sorry. It was a few years after I became commissioner, and we were like the rest of the state. We started at noontime.
For primaries.
For primaries. And of course, being in the New York metropolitan area, we had all the TV stations telling you the polls opened at 6 o'clock in the morning. And then they call up our office screaming and yelling at us because it wasn't open. So they changed that, it was quite a few years ago. And then last year, they changed Dutchess. Now it's the whole state is going to be starting at 6 o'clock in the morning. So everything is the same.
Yeah, and when they had spoken about doing early voting, when they were discussing it last year, I remember one thing, I remember this really clearly. They had said that they were thinking of shortening the hours on Election Day, which I really got excited because our poll workers have to show up at 5 a.m., and sometimes they don't leave until 10 o'clock at night. So it's a really long day, but I haven't seen that same, I haven't seen anybody mention shortening the hours on actual Election Day. Okay, electronic poll books, where we mentioned this a little bit, but the state board right now is actually in the process of looking at, I don't think they have to certify them, but they can give recommendations. And we've had a lot of vendors coming to us and showing us their electronic poll books. Basically, it's like a iPad, and you can sign in. If you're at the wrong polling site, you can get a ticket that will tell you the correct polling site to go to. They all should be connected, so at any point on Election Day at any of the polling sites, if you're going from one place to another, the chances are, if you're not registered, let's say you moved and you moved from Southeast to Carmel, we send you to your correct polling site in Carmel, you'll have to vote by an affidavit ballot. But for all of you that go to your poll sites that are, where you normally vote, you don't have to go to your certain table anymore. You'll just be going into any table that has an electronic poll book, because the whole site's going to be set up essentially as if it's one ED. Everybody that's eligible to vote there is going to be able, it'll come up in the book and they'll be able to sign in. And then you'll be sent to the ballot table for your ballot.
Can I say something?
Sure.
One thing that I've noticed, and I don't think there's anybody in this room who hasn't gone to Home Depot or gone to the drugstore and signed on one of those pads with your finger or whatever. Now, they're going to come in and sign that electronic poll book like that. And I have a concern that signature is not going to look like anything that we have in our registration book, because I've seen the way they work. I mean, I go into the bank. It never starts at the beginning. It always starts in the middle. I'm trying to finally starts in the middle and it goes. And it's just, and people just do circles and everything. So I have that concern about, we're always worried about making sure that the right person has come in. There's no fraudulent voting and everything. These signatures are not going to look like the signatures that you have in the book. So
what do we do about it?
I'm only one person.
You're going to be signing more than once.
Right. That's my deputy Kelly over there. That's
You're going to end up signing more than once.
Well, I don't think
Signatures
so.
are going to matter.
Eye recognition. I mean, everyone else is doing it.
Hey, we just got to this. You want eye recognition?
So there's no voter fraud.
I'll be dead when that happens.
Okay, and we can take questions at the end. Local campaign contribution limits. The legislator mandates that local boards of elections calculate and publish on their websites by April 15th the contribution limits for all county, town, city, and village offices. We've been doing this for years. If you go to our website, you'll see the maximum amount of money you can give for certain campaigns. Obviously, if somebody is running for a county position, they can get higher, limit of campaign money as opposed to somebody for a town position. placement of ballot proposals. This legislation would mandate that a ballot has instructions in a format designed by the State Board of Elections, which includes a graphic arrow to indicate that the ballot is double-sided. We always, when people say, don't forget to turn it over and vote on the back, somebody that works for me always points out, don't say the back, say the other side. And we did have, when we had a bunch of proposals a couple of years ago, we did have an arrow that was pointing to the other side. Number of signatures for designating petitions in 2019. There were 3 of these laws that passed because the primary was changed and made so early, and because everybody was out petitioning when it was so cold, the end of February to March. The state did lower the number of signatures needed for designating petitions, and I don't know how many of you know this, but in order to get on the ballot, if you're going to be running as a major party candidate, you need to get 5% of the registered party members. So let's say there's 1,000 Democrats in the political unit. And so they lowered that. It was lowered for party committee members. It was lowered for this year and next year. For the designating petitions, that was only lowered for this year. Then there's the Voter-Friendly Ballot Act. And this hasn't been passed yet. It was passed by both houses. It hasn't been signed by the governor yet. And this is to make the ballot layout easier to read and more voter-friendly. Then, and it's interesting because we also have voting machine vendors coming in to sell us, to try to sell us their equipment. And we had somebody from ES&S, which was like a full face.
Yeah, well, New York State is the only state that requires a full face ballot. So that means other states will put one race on at a time. We have to have the whole ballot with everybody who's running on, and it has to be on the machine at the same time. So that's a little cumbersome because now that's why we have you remember, how many people remember the lever machine? And they had the full face ballot. And now we have the things, they have to have it. And I've been told ES&S is never going to be ready.
Oh, which is sad because it was a really great machine. And the nice thing about it was you didn't have to have, when it printed out, you voted on a screen, you picked your choices on a screen, and then it actually printed out a small ballot that had your choices on it. You could reject it, you could go back and vote again if you had to, and then you would take that small ballot and you would have that scanned into the machine. So again, it was just eliminating the high cost of the paper that we used for ballots.
Can I do funding?
You can.
State fund. Oh, I got to use the mic. State funding for early voting. Okay, our state legislature finally got something done. $10 million for local boards of election to implement early voting. Counties must submit a plan for approval to the Director of the Division of Budget, naturally. Then we have $14.7 million for capital costs, which would be like the e-poll books and stuff. Sounds like a lot of money, but there's 62 counties in New York State, and it's really not a lot to do all of this stuff. But then they came out with the justification. Well, we're not going to have two primaries anymore, so you're saving $50 million. Well, that's really $25 million because you only have federal elections every other year, not every year. But they're telling us to do all these things, and then the county legislature and the county executive are going crazy because we have 2% cap, and then they want you to do all of these things. So we're waiting to see what happens. We'll be waiting a long time. Okay.
But we will save money this year because we're not going to have a primary.
Yeah, well, that's us, but
and,
that's not the rest of us.
Right. But not only that, but when we do have a federal year and we combine the state and local, we will be saving money because you're only having one primary as opposed to two primaries. Okay. let's see what else. So right now, the state has been sending us the actual early voting regulations, and then this is getting into the nuts and bolts. So we have the opportunity, we get to read through them before they actually pass the new wording for the laws. And they sent it to us on Friday, and it was, this is for 3 different sections of election law. And so we can go through it. If we have questions, comments, we contact them. It's hard because, right now we're all in the same boat. And a lot of this is because of enacting it this year so we can be ready for next year, which is a presidential year. I certainly wouldn't want to be doing this for the first time next year because in 2016 we had 82% turnout in Putnam County for the presidential election. And that's a lot of people. That's a really good turnout. Putnam, we do get people voting, especially over in Phillipstown. That's our highest rate of people turning out to vote, followed by Putnam Valley. And it also depends if there's a contested race somewhere, because certain things will get people out to vote in towns for local years. So that's what we're doing right now. We're getting to, we're still having salespeople coming in with the e-poll books. They're coming in to show us their voting machines. And we're, we've got a lot to figure out. We're, having our polling site, the early voting site at the Board of Elections, we had to have it ADA to have it come and see if it was handicapped accessible. And we had somebody from the Independent Living Services for Putnam and Westchester County. She came. She goes to all the new polling sites that we have, and she does accessibility of the polling sites. And, and we'll make recommendations. Our other new polling site in Carmel is going to be at Mahopac Middle School, and she went there as well and made recommendations. So we're constantly, looking at ways to make it easier for you, the voter, looking at ways where, more people will be eligible, it's easier for them to vote. One thing that I haven't discussed but was mentioned was also the no excuse absentee voting.
But that's a constitutional change again.
Right.
Constitutional changes, like I said before, it's got to go through 2 different legislators, be passed by those 2 legislators, and then it becomes a referendum. So you're talking about a minimum of 4 years before they can get it done.
Yeah.
While we're talking the 3 hours off to vote, that only works if you're working from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. If you're working from 9 to 5, you have time to go vote. So it's like, okay, I'm taking 3 hours off because I'm going to go vote from lunchtime till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And they'll say, no, you got to be able to, it's got to be that you are working the whole time that the election is open, and then you get 3 hours off.
Yeah, and that doesn't count. You don't get 3 hours off to come and early vote. So that's just for election day. So getting back to the absentee voting. So right now, a lot of people used to say, oh, we do have early voting in Putnam County or New York. We just call it voting by absentee. But there's a big difference between early voting and then doing an absentee ballot. An absentee ballot can be challenged. They are not opened until a week after Election Day. And if there's a close race, and I think the last close race we had was in 2017, it was the sheriff's race, and there were, I think, 350 votes separating the two biggest candidates, and lawyers, usually the lawyers show up, and people that are involved in the campaigns, and your vote can be, your absentee vote can be challenged. They can look at the signature, they can look at the excuse.
Years ago, the director of the New York City Board of Elections, they do absentee ballots because they stay he lived in the Bronx, but he was down in Manhattan at the main Board of Elections. Instead of licking the envelope, he put a piece of tape on the envelope. That was challenged because they said that you could identify it because there was a piece of tape on it instead of, and that's one of the main reasons it challenges is to identify the ballot. And lawyers are there to knock out as many ballots as they can, and so it was challenged. Another time, they challenged in Putnam County, they challenged, it was long ago, Sheriff Thorburn was the sheriff, they challenged his sons. And after they challenged, I says, you know, that's the sheriff's son's ballot. I says, he may be waiting, there may be a car waiting for you outside when you leave. But I was only teasing.
Yeah, so they used to actually on your absentee application, they used to want to know if you were going on vacation. I think they wanted to know where you were going.
You had to be out of the county, and if you came back to the county on election day, you were required to go and vote on the machine, and then they would call us, and we would pull that absentee ballot out. And you had to have an excuse that you were out of the county, either on vacation or, like I did it a few times before I was commissioner, because I was on the fire department and I would be working 24 hours, so I could not get up here to vote. But you had to have a valid excuse of why you weren't going to be in the county. So, you know.
And we always do tell people if they vote by absentee and they, just happen to be here because they thought they weren't going to be here, you can still go and vote. We do
No, they're required.
Yeah, you can go and vote at your polling site. That's why we wait a week before we count the absentee ballots, because we pull people who have, and it happens. There's a few people every year that will go and vote, and we pull their ballots, their absentee ballots. I don't know, I think I'm done. I mean, I could go on forever, but do you have anything else? Pardon?
We know that.
Yes.
I've hit what I wanted to hit, and you hit most of it. Anybody have any questions?
Okay, thank you. I just have a clarifying question. If you could do two things for me, please. You could walk me through what happens when a voter comes into the voting place now, what their procedure is, because it sounds like you have a lot of differences, and also what the changes are for the poll workers and what they do. I think if we could have a clear understanding of the process, it might help us more than all the different laws that you talked about.
So currently, when you walk into a polling site, you have to be at the correct polling site and you have to go to your correct election district. There are 86 election districts in Putnam County. There's 30 election districts in Carmel. Southeast has 15, and it diminishes with all the other towns because they have less of a population of voters. You sign in your poll book. The person asks you your name. You say it out loud. They find your name in the poll book. You sign. You're given a ballot right then and there, and you go to the privacy booth. You're given a pen, and you vote. You go over to the optical scan machine, you insert your ballot.
So what do we do now, though?
That's what you do now. That's currently what you do.
What are we going to do?
She's going to go get into that.
So what you're going to do, as long as we get those e-poll books, you're going to walk into your polling site. You still need to be at the correct polling site. You're going to go to any table. There's going to be two people. It's not going to be 4 people anymore. There's going to be a Democrat and Republican at each table with the e-poll book, and you're going to say your name. They're going to make sure you're eligible to vote in that polling site. You're going to sign with your finger, with a pen, whatever. You're going to be given a receipt. You're going to walk over to the ballot table. There's going to be 3 different tables. There's going to be e-poll book.
The receipt says what ED you're in, so that when you go over to the other table, they give you the right ballot.
Okay. So then there's going to be 3 tables. There's going to be the e-poll book tables, there's going to be the help desk, and there's going to be the ballot table. So you go to the ballot table, you give your receipt to the person at the ballot table. They're going to give you your correct ballot, because a lot of EDs, you have different ballot styles within the polling site. You're going to still go and to your privacy booth. You're going to be given a pen. You're going to fill in your ballot. You're going to go cast your ballot. If there are any problems, let's say you cast it and it won't. You try to put it in the machine and it won't. It comes back out, something's wrong with it. You're going to go back, you're going to get yourself another ballot. You're going to turn that ballot in. That's going to be a spoiled ballot. You can get up to 3 ballots. Kelly's trying to tell me something because I don't remember everything. Say that again? Oh, you're going to go back to the e-poll book table, and that's where you're going to get your new, because they have to, and there's going to be something with stubs too, because right now the ballots are stubbed. We don't know what's going to happen with that. So, you know, we have weekly meetings and we've been planning how we're going to deal with this. So once you get your ballot, you'll vote it, you know, you'll mark it, and then you'll cast it in the machine. Now, for the early voting, because we're going to be using print on demand, that's going to be totally different, because we're going to have the people where you're signing in, they're going to be printing your ballot and giving it to you.
Okay, so for the poll workers, what are they doing? If 2 people come with the same name and say they're going to vote, and you know it's a duplicate, is there something in the e-poll book that will say this person already voted?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's real time. They're updated in real time.
What are the people who are sitting there doing when you
Well, once you sign in, and once they press a certain screen, then that shows that you're voting. And then you have the ability to come back and get 2 more ballots. After you've been given 3 ballots, you're not allowed to have any more ballots.
So are there going to be some people around during this process to explain the changes to people if they're confused?
The help desk.
That's the help desk.
Can you still cast a provisional ballot if your 3 failed for whatever reason?
You've never been able to do that. Yeah, provisional ballots are also called affidavit ballots, and that's only if you're not eligible. Let's say you've moved to a new town and you're not going to be in the poll book, then you're able to vote by affidavit. So, Lillian, did I answer it?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You certainly did, but I'm still
Yeah.
confused.
It's still
as to
a-
how that's going to work if there's only one person at the help desk.
Oh, no, there's more than one person at the help desk. No, there's a few. And this is still a work in progress. This is still, we haven't gotten any guidance from the state on
This is this week's plan.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is definitely
I mean,
work in
if you
progress.
saw before, we talked about 3 different times they changed, 3 different times that our great legislature changed the amount of signatures you need. You know, there's no foresight in the legislature. Doesn't make a difference if they're Republican or Democrat. They don't think too far ahead. That's my own opinion.
My only suggestion would be a YouTube video or something ahead of time that shows people what they're supposed to do when they get into the polling.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you.
I wanted to ask you about the ballot on demand. So you mentioned that in the beginning.
Right.
And you also mentioned it now. And now it sounds like the ballot on demand is only going to be for the early voting?
Right.
Okay. So that actually alleviates. I was concerned about if the printer breaks down.
Well,
you won't.
so we would always have at least 2 printers at any poll site, even if there were only 2 election districts there.
But
Because,
if it's early voting.
It's early
Oh,
voting.
yeah, we
yes.
have.
It's early voting.
yeah, yep. And if all else fails, we'll just use our copy machine and make.
I had one other thought. You might want to Canvas set up just a test site in Canvas for people to come in, pretend they're voting, and actually have a mock voting session and see how people deal with it.
Sure.
Because when we've done stuff like that in the past, it's basically a form of testing.
Right.
It'll give you a lot of insights into things like the number of people you need at the help desk and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yep. And we're also, we're going to have a lot of training for all our poll workers, because they're going to have to be able to use the e-poll books. And that's a whole new, it's going to be much easier in the end, but adapting to that from paper and pen, it's day and night, but it will be easier. In fact, voter history will be just about instantaneous, because how we do voter history now is we take a scan gun and we actually do the barcode 1 by 1 by 1 by 1. So when you've got an 83% turnout, you can spend a long time doing voter history.
It's like a couple of weeks, you walk in the Board of Elections, you hear beep, beep, as they're scanning in all the different people that have voted.
Could you reproduce the beep for me again?
Beep.
Good evening. My name is Robert Ferguson. I'm from Mahopac, and I have a few questions. But first off, I'd like to thank both of the commissioners for showing up tonight for giving us some guidance of what we're going to be doing when we get into the poll booth.
Thank you.
My first question is, do you think it's going to be challenged, the electronic signature? If so, that's going to throw everything into a boondoggle, correct?
Anything can be challenged.
Yeah.
So-
And if they do, this whole thing could go right out the window.
Now, and do remember, they've been using electronic poll books in other states for years.
But the signature is what really matters for us.
Uh-huh.
I mean, every time when absentee ballots, anything, it's always a signature. When we're getting petitions, it's always your signature that we're checking. So that's why the signature is so important. Another question is, Lake Seaport Community House is going to be sold.
No
Yes.
more.
Yep.
Is
So,
that still going to be used?
No.
We've already
that's-
moved it all around. We've moved all, we've had to take, that's why we got middle school.
Yeah.
And what we've done is we moved, it isn't like we just took Secor and moved it down there. We've moved it all around. So like some of the ones that were in Austin Road are now in the middle school. Some that were over in, one that was over in Town Hall is now in Austin Road. So we like just pushed it all
As long as
around.
you didn't take the people from Austin Road and move them out of Austin Road. Because we don't want to get lost.
No, we did. 3, if you live in 3, you're now in the, what do you call it? Mahopac Fall School.
No, not free.
Okay.
Another thing is, when we go out petitioning, I notice there's a lot of houses we go to where there are new people, and we use minivan, and we try to update records, but that doesn't go to the Board of Elections. Is that correct, minivan? Because we go to houses where people have been deceased for the last 10 years, and they tell us they're dead. And why don't you people fix the records?
Because when we send the mail check card, they don't send it back. They just throw it in the garbage.
oh, and that's a great point.
Especially when you're dead, it's very hard to do that.
First of all, right now on our website, we have a form. If somebody's deceased,
Yep.
it can be filled out and sent back to us. But it's got to be somebody credible to giving us that information, because we attach that to the deceased
You know, I
voters'
think that would be-
record.
Something like that should be given to the town committees, because when we go out to do petitioning, either or party, that's something that we can use, and it would bring the records up to
Right,
date.
and
If
this
they
just-
move- It's if they move or if they die, correct?
Right.
This just
Move it or
happened
not.
within the last week that
No, I
we
understand,
posted
but I
this.
should
Yeah.
have it already. Okay.
Yeah.
And one last thing, you said Election Day is a holiday?
Yeah,
No.
not yet.
No, okay, but
No.
when it becomes a holiday, who's going to pay, who's going to have off? That's kind of like far-fetched.
I don't know, you can't ask me that, I don't know. But I want to just tell you the thing that happens to me all the time when I go out and do petitions. I'll go up to a house, I'll ask for a certain person, and then the woman will start crying and go, "Eh, my marita, morta." Then I got to go, "Signora, mi dispiace," and I got to go on through this whole thing because they don't fill it out. They don't, we send mail check cards every year. If you just put deceased down and send it back with it. Of course, I can do it and she can do it. We go in the office and say, remove them per commissioner. But that's the only time
You
the
have
other.
the ability to do that. All right, thank
Yeah.
you very much.
And just so everybody knows, mail check cards were sent out last week. When you get them, if you get one for somebody who doesn't live at your house, do mark it, and sign it, and send it back to us, and we'll remove that person from the voting records, or we'll make them inactive. We won't remove them,
Will
excuse
those
me.
cards reflect, because I go to Secor, we're no longer having Secor.
You'll be getting a letter in the mail telling you that's
Yes.
we're required to do that. So you'll be getting a
Yes,
letter.
and not only that, but anybody who does have a new polling site in Mahopac or Carmel, we will be sending letters before the general election. We notify everybody who has a polling site change.
All right, as someone who hails from Putnam Valley and proud to be, and I just learned this, one of the 2 communities with the highest voting record, not this year, but next year, will you institute early voting on the west side of the county as well?
That's a great
We implore
question.
you to do so.
No.
And-
We are the forgotten part of the
And
county.
I hope that everybody utilizes early voting this year so that we will have a second site over there, because I do understand that. We're not mandated to. I think it would be great if we did. So that's a conversation for next year.
Who's paying for it?
We'll figure that out. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Kathy had said earlier in reference to 16 and 17-year-old being able to register to vote. They're pre-regis and they'll sit on our voter rolls for 2 years. They can't vote until they turn 18, just to clarify that. The mail check cards that you should be receiving, if you haven't received them yet, is going to have a host of information on it. It's going to tell you that we're doing early voting. It's got our website. Please use the website. It's got so much information on it, especially about the if you've moved or you know somebody's moved, or if somebody's deceased and you know this. This way it cleans up our voter rolls, because that's what we want too.
This guy, he's gotta take
So,
6,000
and it'll
pictures
have
of me.
For Mahopac Middle School, it'll have all the people that are now being moved over to the Mahopac Middle School, that you'll get that on that mail check card also. I can't stress enough, it's going to be difficult. Change is hard. Change is hard for us in the office, but change is going to be hard for the voters with this new way of voting now with each poll booth. I think, Lillian, is she still here?
Yeah.
You had questioned about if two people come up at the same time. There's going to be, most places are going to have at least 4 poll books, right?
Well, depending on how many election districts,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
You can go to any one of those poll books. So if you and your husband came in at the same time, you could be being checked in, and so can your husband.
That really, my question really was that if somebody.
At the help
is,
desk.
And the way that it's done now is.
The help
sign
desk.
your name on the book, and so if another person came in, you'd see the name sign. But if you have e-polls, you want to make sure that when you go there, if somebody using your name has already signed, it'll come up and say.
It'll
that
automatically
person
come
already
up.
did.
These are gonna, every poll book company you've seen so far, it's almost like a 5-second, goes up to the cloud and comes back down again. It's almost instantaneous.
Do you mind if I ask you one other question on what you said? When you have a pre-registration of the kids from 16 and 17, and they're marked as pre-registered, does that automatically come up when they're, after they're 18, where it changes?
Once a week, we roll them over, so if they're turning 18 tomorrow, they'll be already, they're registered. When it gets closer to the election, because it's 25 days before, you can't register 25 days, registration ends 25 days before an election, they get rolled over so that they will get into the poll books for, so even if they, November 4th, they'll be in the poll books, they turn 18.
So when they were speaking about the electronic signature,
Mm-hmm.
and we're worried about it,
Right.
you said there were 2 signatures.
No. Your signature that we have on file is going to come up in the electronic poll book. So
Oh,
when you
do it
sign.
electronically?
It's going to come up. So they're supposed to compare your signature
With the
to
scribble.
what you're signing.
Okay.
So when you're doing this, it's not going to be acceptable, and you're going to be asked to sign it again.
But you won't, but the voter won't be able to see what their signature is supposed to look like.
Right. So everybody here, when you go to vote and you're voting on an electronic poll book, sign normally, don't go scribbly, because I do that all the time. I get a K and then there's nothing, there's just a line going through it. You're gonna have to be cognizant of the way you're signing your name.
So if you don't sign it where it makes any sense, you gotta do it over?
You'll be asked to do it again. Yeah.
Making the election day a holiday, so who's going to determine whether this is going to happen or not?
I doubt it's going to happen, because first of all, just because it's a holiday doesn't mean you're going to go and vote. But the legislature, I don't know. But I think one of the reasons.
The legislature's going to have to pass it, the governor's going to have to sign it.
So it starts at the you're talking about
But-
They can,
legislature and all the.
Yes,
But,
the state
Phyllis,
legislature.
one of the reasons for this is because the schools really don't want us there when schools are open. So if it was a holiday, the schools would be closed. And right now, I think most of the schools in Putnam have a superintendent's holiday. It's a superintendent's
Superintendent's
day, so the kids aren't in class on the general election. Primaries different.
But it wasn't always that way.
My question is, these signatures that you're gonna pull up to compare, are they on the internet? Is that how you're
No,
pulling it
no,
down?
no. Everybody, when you register to vote, you
Yeah.
sign your registration.
Right.
Those are scanned into our database.
Okay.
And that's what the signature is. And if you've voted, let's say you've been registered in Putnam for 20 years, and over the years your signature might have changed, we go through, after every election, we go through the poll books, and if we see a remarkable difference between somebody's signature, we will upload the new signature.
What I'm saying is the person, when they pull it up,
Yeah.
or whatever they got, what is it, a tablet or something?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Where's that source coming from? Is it through the
Well, it's
internet?
cloud-based.
Or is it on a hard drive right there in that?
No, it's not on a hard drive.
So if the internet's down, we don't vote that day?
That's good.
It doesn't-
Surprise.
That's a good point.
Surprise.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That's why I'm
And-
not fond of it all.
And we could print poll books. We could go back to paper and pen. I mean,
We
this
need
is,
them
this
there
is,
that day,
yeah,
just
well, this
the internet
is,
was
no,
out.
you make a really good point, so.
Hi, Joe Montori. A similar question, actually. If it's cloud-based, I'm wondering if there's any safeguards against hacking.
Oh, yeah, believe me, that cybersecurity is a very big issue for the state board, for us, for all Board of Elections in New York State, so.
So,
It's a real-
so where's
it's-
the protection then?
It's all over. The state board does it, Homeland Security does it, our Putnam County does it. It's not something that I really want to discuss right here, but it is something that it's actively worked on all the time.
Okay.
That's why you heard me say I'm really concerned about it.
You too, and everybody in the Board of Elections have your work cut out for you. And we really appreciate all that you do, and thank you for being here tonight.
It certainly wasn't like it was 29 years ago.
Nothing is. Let's see, I just wanted to say some thank yous, so I thank you, and thank you again. This was an excellent program tonight. I really appreciate you being here. And I appreciate our audience. Thank you very much for coming out. And for all I'm saying thank you, I want to thank Joanne Riccoboni. Riccoboni or Riccobono? Riccoboni and her assistants for the videotaping tonight. Thank you so much. All of your attempts at trying to get our wireless microphone system working, which I greatly appreciate. Thank you to Deb Feynman. Are you here, Deb? Yep. And the Mahopac Library. All that you do, Deb, to help the League of Women Voters, to support us. Thank you to all of our League members for their participation and making tonight a possibility. Really, thank you. Why don't you all stand up for a minute, please? Won't be hard, just for a minute. Thank you. Thank you all. Nina. You forgot already. Okay, so we have several upcoming events. More recent will be an educational forum on New York healthcare on May 23rd. There are flyers out on the table, and of course I will invite people, as I usually do. It'll be on our League Facebook page. And the flyers will provide you information on the speakers. We have some really good speakers who will explain what New York Health is really all about, in addition to the financial aspects of it. Okay, we hope you will join us that night for a very informative meeting. And did I forget anything else? No? Henry?
Sign-in sheets.
What about it?
Make sure everybody that was here signed in.
Yeah, if you will sign in, we only use it to invite you to our next events. We don't send a lot of emails out, I promise. Okay, so thank you again, and thank you all for being here.